So a common question that I get is, what exactly is an accredited investor? How do I know who's accredited and who's not? So I'm just going to quickly go through the definition to provide a little bit of an explanation. Share my screen here. So what is an accredited investor and why does it matter? So essentially, when anyone is out raising capital, they need to determine an exemption from securities law in order to issue stock, units in an LLC, membership interest, whatever it is, because the SEC has certain rules and regulations around what are considered securities. So generally, most people rely on Reg D private placements for what are considered exempt offerings. And those are most commonly Rule 506 private placements. And a lot of that determines what exemption you can use based upon whether someone's an accredited investor. So under Rule 506B and 506C, which 506B is one of the most common ways to privately raise capital, you can have an unlimited number of accredited investors in your offering. So if you go out to raise $5 million, you can have 500 or 1,000 accredited investors to raise that capital, but you have to determine if they're accredited or not, which is defined in Rule 501. You can also have up to 35 non-accredited investors in an offering under 506B only, not under 506C. And I have separate videos to discuss the differences between 506B and 506C. But the non-accredited have to meet the level of being sophisticated, which is not necessarily a defined term, but they have to have experience in business and financial matters to protect their interests. So what exactly is accredited? So the rule has changed over time, and it's in Reg D under Rule 501, where it's defined. And there's about 14 different definitions, and this is just a summary. You can actually find the exact rule if you look up accredited investor Rule 501 and see the actual definition yourself. It's in the Code of Federal Regulations. The most common that most people are aware of is if you have a net worth over $1 million, but you cannot include your primary residence, your home, in that calculation. Or if you make over $200,000 in the last 2 years, and you have an expectation of making that in the next year for an individual, or if it's a couple, then it's $300,000 in income over the last 2 years. Same thing with an expectation that you'll be making that for the next year. Some other definitions for individuals would be a director, executive officer of the issuer, meaning the company that's issuing the security or selling stock or units, or you're a director, executive officer of the general partner of the issuer. For example, if it's a limited partnership that's issuing stock or limited partnership interests, then you're an executive officer of the general partner. Also, securities, investment advisors, certain licensed individuals or professional certifications can make you an accredited investor. Also, if you're a knowledgeable employee of the issuer, and a lot of these terms are defined under the Investment Advisors Act or the Investment Company Act. So I won't get into all the specifics here, but basically that's the defined term, a knowledgeable employee, someone who works for the issuer and had like their CFO or their controller who might know about the finances and understand the business. Then there's also definitions that apply to individual or non-individuals. These are entities, banks, savings and loans, broker-dealer, securities broker and dealer, investment advisor, insurance companies, registered investment company, what's considered small business or rural investment companies, government employee benefit plans with over $5 million in assets, private business development companies, and certain entities that qualify as charitable, basically a 501c3 entity under the tax code. And most on this list are, you have to look at the actual definition in the Investment Advisors Act or Investment Company Act to see if you fall within there. A few others for non-individuals, what's considered a family office or a family client as defined under the Investment Advisors Act. Also, a pretty common one is investment or retirement accounts that fall within ERISA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, if the investment decision is being made by a plan fiduciary, and the plan is either a bank, savings and loan, insurance company, registered investment advisor, or if the benefit plan has assets over $5 million, or if the employee benefit plan is self-directed and the investment decisions are being made by accredited investors. So that one's kind of a technical definition, but it covers certain retirement accounts. A couple more for entities: a trust with assets over $5 million, as long as it wasn't formed basically with the intent to invest in your investment. An LLC, corporation, trust, any kind of entity where all of the owners are accredited. So if you have an LLC with 5 members, all 5 members would have to fit some definition of accredited investor, whether it's net worth over $1 million, income over 200,000, or one of the other definitions for every single equity owner. Also, if you have an entity, LLC, corporation, what have you, that was not formed for this specific investment and has assets over $5 million. So these are the most common terms of accredited investor, and you can look these up under Rule 501 in Reg D.